You know, seeing that kind of treatment of a person is absolutely heartbreaking. But I'm going to explain to you all why in China this is fairly common.
Show me something. Show me something. Show me the paper. Show me something like that you are not allowed ripping the paper from the wall.
Oh no, is she looking at jewelry? I just bought her something, and I always seem to get it wrong. It's so difficult to predict if someone's gonna like something, especially when it comes to style. Clothing, jewelry, that kind of thing. Well, once again it didn't work out, but at least I had Exter as a backup. I've been really trying, baby. Exter wallets make the best gifts, and no joke, if you're wondering what you can get for Father's Day, for Mother's Day, for a birthday, for Christmas, for anything, how about just it's Tuesday, let's get a gift for someone you love. Exter's the wallet for you. It's sleek, it's high-tech, it's fantastic, it's durable. I've had mine for years and it's survived all of my shenanigans working on cars and motorcycle riding and all that other kind of nonsense. Still looks fantastic. I also like the fact that it accommodates an AirTag, so I don't need to worry about leaving it behind, as my phone alerts me if I've left it in my car, for instance, or in my office. Fantastic stuff, and you can get a huge discount if you go over to shop.exter.com/SerpentZA. Right now, there's a great deal going, so you can pick something up for your significant other. And they have styles for all tastes, classy, rugged, stylish. Again, go to shop.exter.com, use the code SerpentZA at checkout, and you'll get a massive discount. And now, back to the show. So I'm going to start this out with a little anecdote here. I was dating a girl, real little cutie, really nice girl. I really liked her. And I wanted to take her out and I wanted to impress her. So I wanted to take her out to a nice restaurant. So I took her to my favorite restaurant in Shenzhen. In fact, it was my favorite restaurant in China, and it was a Japanese restaurant. And I knew the staff incredibly well because when I'd first came to China, I'd stumbled across this restaurant. And all of the staff, although Chinese, could speak Japanese fluently. There were a lot of Japanese businessmen in the area. And my Japanese at the time was fairly good. I mean, that's maybe bigging it up a bit. I'd say it was adequate. And I couldn't speak a lick of Chinese, and nobody could speak a lick of English in the city. So these girls who worked there helped me out tremendously in the beginning. Because I'd go there, and in my sort of amateur broken Japanese, I would ask them questions. They would help me out and point me in the right direction. And you know, without them, I really don't know what would have happened. So I had a great relationship with the staff there. I absolutely loved it. The food was top notch. And anytime I wanted to impress somebody, or if there was a big event like my birthday, I would always go to this restaurant. And so people coming out of town, I would take them there. My parents came to visit, I took them there. This was like, everyone's got that place, right? So I really wanted to impress this girl, and I took her to this restaurant. Now, of course, it was fairly expensive. I mean, in comparison to the average restaurant that you would go to in the city, this was much more expensive. And so, of course, she knew that we're going to this place, and she knew that it was expensive. And we sat down, and I ordered food for us and a couple of drinks. And then suddenly, out of left field, she started to become incredibly rude to the staff. They hadn't even done anything wrong. I placed the order, and then in Chinese, she told them, you better not make any mistakes with that order and hurry up with the drinks and that kind of thing. And she just treated the wait staff like absolute trash. And it was incredibly disappointing to me because, like I said, these were my friends. She obviously didn't know that, but she treated them so badly that was the end of it. The relationship didn't go any further than that night, which is a pity. She was really cute and I really liked her, but I just couldn't believe how badly she was treating the wait staff. You see, what she was trying to do was she was trying to impress me. Okay, when people have money in China, it's all about face. It's all about impressing other people. I've got money, I can boss people around. So she was thinking, okay, he's spending money on the dinner. That means that, we're in a position of power, we have the money, so I'm going to throw my power around and my influence around and, show everyone who's boss. And she thought that this would impress me, of course, which it did not impress me whatsoever. At the end of the day, I can't blame her. It's something that she learned from society and probably her parents and her bosses and whatever else. She had a very entry-level job. She used to be a sales for one of these electronics chip sourcing supplier type things in Shenzhen there in Huajianbei. And so, she'd be just selling chips and stuff online and to people. So that's what she did. Very basic income and had moved to Shenzhen from a more rural area. And that plays into this whole thing. You see, the wealth gap in China is astounding. You want to talk wealth gaps? Holy crap. I mean, you've got people that are scraping by on like $1 a day, people that have got almost nothing. And that's not a small amount of people. That's like half the population of China are scraping by on very little in the rural countryside. Then suddenly, in the cities, you have people riding around in Ferraris and Bentleys and who knows what else. People with lots of money, middle income, incredibly rich. In fact, the gap between the middle income and the rich people, like incredibly rich, is also just astronomical. It's something that you would not understand unless you'd lived in China and traveled around the rural side and actually seen the big cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and then you go into the rural countryside, you're like, what is this? They may as well be two completely different countries, in all honesty. Now take this wealth gap and the idea that, once you have money, suddenly you have influence. And especially if you've got some kind of government connection, wow, then you're just really like top of the pops, right? But take that and couple it to the fact that there's no religion in China. And I mean, I'm not saying that, it's just not religious. No, literally, if you are a CCP member, if you're connected to the government in any way, shape or form, you have to sign basically a legal letter that says, I do not practice any religion. I am atheist. You must be atheist to be a Communist Party member. You have to be by law. Otherwise, you cannot be a Communist Party member, right? Any religion that was in China is completely wiped out. And that which remains is heavily controlled and censored by the Chinese Communist Party. So the result of this unholy marriage between the lack of religion and the fact that money equals power is this kind of deification of money. In other words, money has been made into God in China. And those with money have become saints. Those with money have become the top. Those with money are the kings. They are the leaders. They are the ones who can control the masses, right? It's a crazy situation, and you cannot even begin to compare it to a capitalist society. Of course, we all know rich people get away with a lot of shit. I mean, we all know that a handful of rich people in a room control the world, right? Whatever. I mean, you believe what you want to believe, but when you're talking about down-to-earth, actual normal people like you and me, the kind of people that just actually participate in society and go out there and do normal people things, like have a job and go to restaurants and do things. In China, those who have money treat those who don't like shit. This awful bullying of service people and bullying of the poor has led to all sorts of things and has permeated Chinese society massively. I mean, you may have seen the ridiculous news coming out of China in the past, like people throwing boiling water over air hostesses, or preventing trains from leaving because they're waiting for somebody, or bullying of traffic police, or bullying of staff anywhere. I mean, there are plenty of examples that can be used to point out this whole attitude. And this is honestly one of my biggest pet peeves. is that the arrogant, very disagreeable, horrible, rude people are the ones who rise to the top. And those that are well-mannered and humble are pushed to the bottom. And this has led to this absolutely horrible situation where China's got this reputation, right, these days. I'm sure you've heard of it. But China has a reputation for incredibly rude tourists, right? The type that go overseas and trample on the flowers and scroll their names on the Egyptian temples and, cut in lines and do terrible things. And that's because, quite honestly, all you're seeing is the worst of China.
Something that doesn't belong to you.
Just because you don't agree with it,
Everybody has their freedom of speech. That's their freedom of speech.
yeah, that's my freedom of speech. If you're pro-China, there's a wall over there, you can put stuff up. If I call the police, I will call the ambassador.
What gives you the right to pull down something
that belongs to someone else.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. Who gives you the right?
You have no right. Oh, so who gives them the right?
No, who's giving you the right?
Who said I'm not allowed? I don't have right to rip something.
No, you don't. You don't have the right.
Yes, show me something. Show me something. Show me the paper. Show me something like said you are not allowed ripping the paper from the wall.
I just want to show that I'm not show my freedom.
Yeah, I understand that, and I will blur out your face, right? But can you tell me a bit about why you think it's right to rip these down?
I don't think I'm right, but you think you are right?
If it was the other way around, if it was the service industry people, if it was the people from the rural countryside who are the ones that had the money to travel, I think the entire world would have a completely different opinion of China, because those are the best people. They're so hospitable and lovely. Those are the people that made me fall in love with China. As I traveled throughout China, it was the humble, hospitable, wonderful people who were very happy to engage in conversation and very happy to show their kindness to a stranger that really impressed me. These guys that throw money around and try to take you to a fancy restaurant to pretend they're all important and treat everyone else like shit, I actually detest them. I can't stand them. They're the worst people I met in China. I don't care how much money you have, or how many fancy cars you drive, or, whatever your level is in society or in the government or whatever. If you treat people like shit, like that guy in the Mercedes-Benz throwing the money on the floor, you're not a decent person to me. And don't even get me started on government people, because they're even a level above. The government people treat the middle-class people and even rich people like scum and treat them as if they're subhuman. And in turn, of course, those people are treating the have-nots in a terrible way. It's not a good system. It's not something that most Westerners can understand, because I don't know about you, but when I go to a restaurant and I sit down and a waiter or a waitress comes to serve me at my table, I don't see them as a lesser human being. I see them as someone with a job, just like me. Some people might think that, being a waiter or a waitress is an entry-level job, and perhaps, it's something that you start out with and then you move on to another career or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's a job. And waiters and waitresses actually make pretty good money with tips and so on and so forth. Not to be laughed at, actually. I was quite shocked when I found out, when I was younger anyway, that a friend of mine who was a waitress was earning double my salary, and I was a network administrator, and I thought I was all fancy pants. And here she is doing waitress work and driving a much nicer car and living a much better life than I was. So anyway, the fact of the matter is, there's still this understanding that we're equal as human beings. But in China, it's not like that. If you're in the service industry, you are treated as a lesser person, a person to be trampled on. And you get to see this so much. And unfortunately, and as this is not a very proud point of mine, is you start to go along with it. I started to treat waiters and waitresses poorly too when I was in China. I mean, of course, not I was never terrible to them, but the whole thing of you call them over loudly, Fu Yuan and Shao Jian, treat them as if they're just there for your every beck and call.
Wait, see, we are here and people are sick. Here, who can help them? And these people just tell them this. Just want to see.
actually that kind of had a knock-on effect. Like everything in China kind of wears down on your polite sensibilities, like holding a door open. Spend a couple weeks in China and you get that knocked out of you because you hold the door open, say at a mall entrance or something, and a whole city will walk in before anyone decides to like take over from you and let you go. And no one says thank you, not a one. So you kind of get worn out doing these nice things and you stop holding the door open for people. In traffic, you stop letting people in because, you let one person in and the whole city wants to drive in there and nobody lets you in. So it has a bad effect on you. There's a lot about Chinese society which needs a lot of improvement and unfortunately is still very far behind. And of course, the treatment of the have-nots and those in the service industry is one of them. And this is why we can explain away this horrible video where the guy just throws the money on the ground and expects her to pick it up as if she's some kind of a beggar, some kind of a peasant. And that is because that mentality, this whole sort of, for lack of a better word, the emperor and peasant mentality is still very alive in China. I really hope this video has helped explain to you why a video like that exists. Unlike those rich bastards who boss around and kick around the poor in China, stay awesome.
이게 소스.